What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Square Pegs. I'm Jay, and today we are talking about what, no joke, was probably my most anticipated game of the year outside of Shredder's Revenge, and it's related right to that game, and it is, of course, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the Cowabunga collection. This is a collection of 13 games, and I want to give you my thoughts on it. So what we're going to do is we're going to hop in, I want to show you all the extras that are in the game, and then we are going to rank each and every game on this collection. So what do you say? Let's get over to the Switch, and let's rank it all. All right, before I get into the rankings themselves, I wanted to show off a little bit of some of the extras on this collection because it's kind of ridiculous. And one of the things I'm not going to show, I want to talk about real quick, is that each game has different enhancements available to it, and each one has a regional difference. So you can play either the US or the Japanese release, as well as do things like turn off the slowdown or the flicker in some of the NES games, turn on God mode on some of the arcade games. There's a lot of different options you're able to add to the games in this collection, which is pretty cool. Now, for purposes of the ranking, it's all going to be just the vanilla presentation. It's going to be exactly what it is, what you would have played out of the box the first time you played this game. So no enhancements, no additions, nothing like that. But one of the things I really love about this collection is all the extras that are in place here. Like you've been seeing as I've been talking here, there's all the different box arts for the game, and they're all broken down. So you get front and back scans of both the American and Japanese releases. There are full scanned manuals for each game, including the arcade ones, which actually like show you the different dip switches and things to activate. It's kind of ridiculous. There's a jukebox with all the music from each of the games. There's a still gallery of all of the animated series that have been released for the Ninja Turtles. It is a masterpiece of a collection. I am so impressed with everything that Konami, Nickelodeon, and Digital Eclipse pulled together to make this collection a reality. Now, let's get to the rankings.
Fire! Hang on, April.
All right, first up, going through every game in the Cowabunga collection is the original arcade release of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And what really needs to be said about this game more than what everyone has said a million times over that's ever played it? It is one of the best arcade experiences you will ever have. Incredible graphics, fantastic music, good digitized voices, a really, really solid challenge to get through, and just the type of game that is going to get you to constantly plunk down quarters to try and get through the game. This is one of my first real arcade memories that I have, spending a ton of quarters on this game with my friends and just trying to get as far as we could, and wishing one day that we'd be able to have the arcade experience at home, and well, here it is. The Konami original arcade release of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is nearly perfect. In fact, it's not nearly perfect. It is perfect. It's exactly the type of game that gets you to go to the arcade, and it's exactly the type of game that makes this collection so great. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in the arcade gets an S. So upfront and honest, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time in the arcade was something I had never played until this summer when I was in Columbus at the 16-bit bar downtown. And when I played it, I mean, I had fun with it. It's a great game, don't get me wrong, but I couldn't quite put my finger on why it didn't connect with me. And it took me getting this home, the Cowabunga collection home, for me to realize what the issue is. And the big problem I have with Turtles in Time in the arcade is the random sprinting that they've tossed in. I don't like changes to the locomotion of a character I'm controlling that I'm not actively doing the input on. Like, if I double tap forward and the character runs, that's fine. That doesn't bug me in the slightest. But something where I'm just pushing forward on the joystick or on the D-pad in this case, and all of a sudden my character starts sprinting, makes me feel out of control and doesn't make me feel like the game is playing up to what it could. So despite the fact that this is a great game, and it is really a fantastic title with a wonderful look, great sound, spectacular challenge, that control element just kind of takes me out of it. And if gameplay isn't there, I can't make it perfect. It is going to get an A, however. Turtles in Time on the Super Nintendo runs into a lot of the same issues that the arcade release experienced. Like, that weird sudden sprinting is still in place, and that doesn't get magically acceptable on a Super Nintendo controller. It's still frustrating. It's still something I don't like. And that does knock it down a little bit, as well as the fact that I feel it's kind of uneven difficulty-wise. One of the things I also don't like is that it just... And I understand that this is because the Super Nintendo doesn't have necessarily the space or the capabilities. You're trying to cram things onto that particular cartridge, but I love the digitized voices in the arcade release, and playing this one and having to get through text boxes when a boss is introduced or when April's introduced in the game at the start, it just kind of takes you out of the action, and it's an interrupt for a game that, while already is a little bit slow, like to me this plays a little bit slower than Hyperstone Heist, I don't necessarily want that. I want something that's going to be a little bit more fast-paced, a little bit upbeat, and Turtles in Time just doesn't quite get there to me. Now, I'm nitpicking this. I know it's going to sound like I'm trying to knock this down entirely, but for me, it's still a great game. I'm never going to complain if someone offers to play Turtles in Time with me, but rather than it being an S, I'm going to say it gets an A for a lot of the same reasons that the arcade release did.
Round one. Fight!
Now, I don't know if this opinion is going to cause any kind of controversy here, because I honestly don't know if there's a huge fan base for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighters, but spoiler, none of the Tournament Fighters releases are going to get terribly favorable scores in these rankings. This one is for the SNES, and this, in my opinion, is the best of the bunch. But that doesn't make it good. It does have fairly slow gameplay. It's very vanilla. If you have ever played a basic fighting game, you have played this one, you can pick it up and go. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but it doesn't do anything exceptional. It's just a very vanilla fighter that just happens to have the Ninja Turtles in it, as well as a bunch of other characters that we've never really heard of before. They might have been in some of the comics or something like that Archie did, but I'm not familiar with them at least. So if you're a Turtles super fan and you know these characters, well, let me know down below. I'd love to know their backstories. It's not a terrible game. It is not the worst of the lot. It is definitely better than some fighting games that I've played, I will say that. But it is, at the end of the day, a very average release, and for this collection, it's not something that I'm probably going to play too terribly often. I'm going to say it's middle of the road. I'm going to say it's an average. It's going to get a C. There are so many things that I love about the Hyperstone Heist. Like, I feel it was perfectly suited for the 3-button Genesis controller, and I just love the look of it. There are certain things that you're able to do in the game that I think are spectacular. You can change between a visual appearance on the Turtles between their animation appearance, and the comic appearance, so they're a little bit more muted colors than what was on the cartoon. And the gameplay in this game is just spectacular to me. Like, I think it has a good tempo. I don't think it misses difficulty-wise. Like, I think it's fairly even from jump as you go through, that it's not going to suddenly have these weird ebbs and flows of difficulty or these sudden swells of, like, just pull your hair out frustration that you experience in some other brawlers. I just think that Hyperstone Heist is a perfect brawler. It is one of my all-time favorite Genesis games, one of the best brawlers I've ever played, and for me, it's one of the best games on this collection. Hyperstone Heist absolutely gets an S.
Round one, fight!
Things rapidly go downhill on the Genesis, however, when we start talking about tournament fighters, because oh my god, this game is so bad. The character models are ugly. Points for Casey. Glad that Casey Jones is in this game. Really wish he would have been in the Super Nintendo version that was at least a competent fighter. But this one is just so bad. Like, you have clones of the Turtles, so rather than fighting Michelangelo versus Michelangelo, it's Michelangelo versus Blue Michelangelo. Or not even Michelangelo versus Blue Michelangelo. It's Raphael versus Blue Michelangelo. The character models don't look great. It's a very 90s game. Like, they feel edgy for the sake of being edgy. And it's just not fun. The controls suck. The music isn't good. The look is bad. It's just not... It's not a pleasant experience to play this game. I'm not going to say it's a failure because, I mean, you can play it. It does work. So I have to give it a D, however. It's something I will legitimately never play again. Okay, moving on to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on the NES, the original release. Yes, the one with the water levels and the electric seaweed. Now, I didn't get to the electric seaweed because I suck at this game, but I wanted to talk about this one because I've been fairly negative about this game in the past, and I've said that it's not necessarily something I enjoy, and truth be told, it's still not. But if I'm looking at it just from a perspective of how is this game, it's pretty average. It's very middle of the road to me. It's got fairly good graphics, like you can tell it's the Turtles. The enemies are kind of weird, like you fight random missiles with wings, or strange random blob dudes that can turn on fire, a frogman. Bebop and Rocksteady are there briefly, and they disappear after the first sewer, and then there's a guy with a chainsaw. It's a very... To me, it feels like this started life as another game, and then Konami got the Ninja Turtles license and just slapped that on there like flex tape and said, yeah, look, it's a Ninja Turtles game, have fun. It's just not my thing. Like, it's a very classic Konami game. Like, it feels like Konami, but it doesn't have that same replay value to me that something like Castlevania or Contra does. I will say again, it's a very average game. I'm going to give it a C. I wish I loved this game more. I wish I could see the beauty in this game that some people do, but for me, it just gets a C. That's 2 videos in a row I'm talking about this one. All right, so this is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game for the NES, and it's really interesting because playing this right after having played the arcade release, which is also on this collection, you begin to realize how much went into this NES game. Like, it is faithful to the arcade release, but it is also vastly different compared to what you got in the arcade. Like, the levels are longer. It's a fantastic NES game. I will say, compared to some of the other games on this collection, that does cause a little bit of the shine to be rubbed off this game because, I mean, when you're comparing it to Hyperstone Heist or Turtles in Time or the original arcade release, you realize some of the flaws inherent in an NES game because it just, I mean, it's half the power of some of these games, but it's still brilliant because if you look at it for just what it is, the game is nearly perfect. There are things about it that I don't like, there are things about it that I haven't liked since I was a kid, but there's far more about it that I do like. And while I think standing on its own 2 feet just by itself, this would be perfect, I think, like I said, some of the shine is rubbed off by some of the other games in this collection. So I can't give it an S because compared to the arcade release and Hyperstone Heist, I don't think it quite lives up to that expectations. But I'll tell you what, I had just as much fun playing this as I did Turtles in Time. So I am going to give Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game for the NES, an A. Now, I know when I did one of my ranking videos a couple years ago, and I ranked this game here. This is TMNT 3, The Manhattan Project. I know I rubbed a lot of people the wrong way based on what I said, and that may happen again here because I know a lot of people hold this game in very high regard. And I will be completely upfront and honest with you. I think the game plays very well. The controls are stronger. I think some of the animations are better. But a lot of what made TMNT 2 so special is things like the attention to detail. With this game, those corners are kind of cut. Like, if you look at the bottom bar, where all of the score information is and what character you're controlling is, everyone's in red. Now, as a comic fan, that works for me because all the Turtles wore red in the initial Mirage comics, but most people know them in their blue, red, orange, and purple masks, and everyone's just red here. And to me, that just seems like something that was overlooked, something that was missed, and something that probably shouldn't have, made it to the final release. And to me, that's the kind of small thing that just takes away from the overall package. I do really like this game, however, and I've gone back and played it more often since the first time I did a ranking on this, and I can look at it and see that it is better than I had initially thought. I am going to give the Manhattan Project for the NES a B+. It's close to an A, but some of those corners that were cut from the Ninja Turtles 2 release kind of just knock it down slightly for me. All right, and we come to the last Tournament Fighters game, and about the best thing I can say about the NES release for this is that the music is really good. But the gameplay and graphics just knock this game down. Like, some of the backgrounds are pretty good. I do like those, but honestly, for this game, it's just not fun to play. Like, the NES was not made for fighting games, and this is Exhibit A in that regard. It's okay, but honestly, that's probably being too nice. It's not okay. It's not a fun game. On its best day, it's average, but on most days, it's quite a bit below. I have to give Tournament Fighters for the NES a D. The Game Boy releases featuring the Turtles were all pretty well great. Like, they're all very good games. None of them are perfect, but they're all really good games. And the first one that was released was Follow the Foot Clan. This is a game I adore. I go back and play this all the time. And I'm going to be honest with you, I think the reason I do go back and play it all the time is because of how damn easy it is. The game has amazing music, a fantastic look, but difficulty-wise, this has next to no challenge. It's one of the simplest and most straightforward games that you will ever play on the Game Boy, and it's fun, but there's nothing really worth coming back to on this one. When you beat it once, you don't ever need to play it again. Now, it's something I play all the time because I suck at video games, and it's nice to feel like I'm achieving something, but at the end of the day, if you want a challenge, this is not the game for you. Follow the Foot Clan is good, it gets a B, but it could have been better. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 Back from the Sewer on the Game Boy is another good release. It has really good graphics, there's huge sprites, but the thing that fails it is that there's like no animations. There's 2 frames when you jump, and 2 frames when you walk, and 1 frame when you attack. I don't know, it doesn't feel graphically like they really put a ton of effort into this one. And while the game is fun, the gameplay itself is fairly uninspired and doesn't really do anything worth writing home about. I do think that there is a spectacular digitized voice when you go to the pause screen and it says pizza time. Here, take a listen. Pizza time. Like, I'm blown away that that's on the Game Boy. That's so incredible to me, but I can't really rank a game up for having a good digitized voice on the pause screen. It's still fun. Like, it's a fun game. Like I said, all of the Game Boy games are fun, but the first one and this one kind of fall a little bit as far as quality goes. This one's going to get a B as well. Last but not least is TMNT 3, The Radical Rescue on the Game Boy, and while this is probably the muddiest looking of the 3 Game Boy releases, where this game excels is with spectacular gameplay. This has a huge Metroidvania-inspired... You know what? No, we're going to borrow from Riggs here, because I really liked that he called it a Retrovania, and that's kind of what it feels like, because this feels like a decidedly Super Nintendo-era adventure game. Like, you're going all over the map, there are different things that you need to find, and it's just super good. It's got a solid challenge, really good animations in the game, a fun storyline to follow along with. It's kind of the total package. This is a game I wish I had owned when I was younger, because this is something I would have played constantly on my Game Boy. I am going to give Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, The Radical Rescue, an A. There you have it, my friends. My thoughts on the Turtles Cowabunga collection, newly released on the Switch and other consoles, and just super stoked to have this. Hey, if you're new around here or you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing. I'd love to have you stick around, and let me know in the comments down below how off base I am on my rankings. Big thank you to my patrons and channel members you guys are seeing on screen right now. None of this would be possible without them. So until next time, remember to play more games, stay square, and take care. I'll talk to you soon.